Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thanks for joining us for our very final WQRF summer school session. We're so pleased to have had 4 sessions this summer. Special thanks to our sponsor, Calgon Carbon, for helping us put on this webinar series this summer. I am Callie Matheny. I'm the Director of Operations for WQRF. Additionally on the call is our Research Program Manager, Kayla Callejas. She'll be helping to facilitate some of our Q&A today. Again, a special thanks to Calgon Carbon, but to also all of our contributors who might also be on this call today. Thanks so much for your support of the work we do here at WQRF. A couple bits of housekeeping before we get started. As you know, we typically are in the webinar platform on Zoom, so please put any questions you might have for our presenters today inside the Q&A in your Zoom bar. We will be facilitating Q&A after each poster presentation today. So we'll take those one at a time. If you have any questions, go ahead and plug them in there. And at the end of each poster, we'll go ahead and use that time to have our presenters respond to any questions you may have. Lastly, as a reminder, as always, we will send you a complete recording of this session a couple days post webinar. So typically look to your email before the end of the week today. We'll have all of that ready for you in a follow-up email by Friday. But as usual, feel free to check out our website, wqrf.org/webinars, for any of our past webinar content and recordings. So today's webinar is a little bit unique. For a second year in a row, WQRF will open a call for poster presentations that will be offered during WQA's annual convention at the Long Beach Convention Center in April of 2025 in California. So we're very excited about the location, and we're excited about our call for posters. Wanted to take a look back today at our winning poster presentations from 2024. They feature 2 of our David Loveday Scholarship winners, Fatima Azadi, PhD, and Shantali Villalona. After these presentations, we'll share the pertinent details of 2025's contest and introduce our call for poster collaborator this year, the American Public Health Association's Environmental Section's Health and Water Committee. Lucky for us, the committee's co-chair, Dr. Aziz Molla, who is a professor of public health from Grand Valley State University in Michigan, is also on our call today to help us kick off our call for 2025. But first, let's hear from Shantali. She is our first poster presenter. Shantali is originally from Newark, New Jersey, and she just recently completed her master's program in environmental water resources under the supervision of Dr. Mark Edwards in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Virginia Tech University. Her thesis focused on lead reduction methods, namely POU particle removal mechanisms and inhibition of lead tin solder spallation in the presence of elevated nitrate. Her interest in water is related to her community's experience navigating the Newark water crisis. Her lived experience is the driving force behind her dedication to science communication and the advancement of knowledge in the drinking water field. She'll be presenting her poster today, Differing Mechanisms for Lead Phosphate Particle Removal by Point of Use Media Dependent on Particle Size and Lability. So I'm going to turn this over to Shantali. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I think, are we showing the poster yet? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shantali, as was mentioned, and today I'll be presenting a previous poster of mine titled Differing Mechanisms for Lead Phosphate Particle Removal by Point of Use Media Depend on Particle Size and Lability. So it's quite a mouthful. Next slide. To begin, as you all know, point-of-use filters are routinely used to mitigate lead exposure at the tap and will soon even be required in accordance with the upcoming improvements to the lead and copper rule. And I think despite their general effectiveness at removing soluble lead, there have been cases where pitcher filters have failed to remove particulate lead in both field and lab studies. And these difficult to remove particles can form under a wide range of aquatic chemistry conditions when being upon addition of orthophosphate as a corrosion control treatment, where you can have fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles form in the short term and larger, older lead phosphate particles form and potentially be released into drinking water in the long term. Next slide. And so in an effort to really understand why or how good removal of particles are obtained in some cases, but not quite in others. This study really aimed to unambiguously identify the lead removal mechanism for these difficult to treat particles by ion exchange resin, as well as pitcher filters made up of these resins, with the underlying idea that if we can understand how a part of the pitcher filter works, then that may aid in our overall understanding of the total lead removal by the pitcher filter. Next slide. And so this study included a few challenge suspensions, one being a fresh lead phosphate nanoparticle suspension, which I synthesized according to the Lidl recipe, and two suspensions were older, larger lead phosphate particle suspensions. One was synthesized in the lab according to a chloropyromorphite recipe, and the second of which was acquired from a New York City pipe loop rig made up of harvested lead pipes, which contained particles that were more than 3 years of age. And so in the study, I evaluated lead removal by filtering these suspensions through ion exchange packed columns, as well as lead certified pitcher filters, at which point I monitored pH as well as total insoluble lead and phosphate before and after filtration. Next slide. And so what I noticed when I filtered the fresh lead phosphate nanoparticle suspensions through the packed ion exchange columns were that some of the ion exchange columns drastically altered the suspension pH upon treatment. More specifically, the H+ form resin was able to drastically lower the suspension pH from an initial 7.4 down to 4.1. And on the other side of that coin, the hydroxide form resin was able to drastically raise the suspension pH from an initial 7.4 up to 10.9. And I guess concerning lead removal, we noticed that despite both cation exchange resins effectively removing soluble lead as we'd expect, that the H+ form resin was able to drastically outperform the sodium form resin at removing these fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles, achieving a total removal of 95% compared to 26%. Next slide. And so curious about the superior lead removal and H+ resin's ability to drastically drop the pH, we performed a series of lead dissolution tests where it became clear that these fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles dissolve immediately at a pH of 4 and remain dissolved at that pH, and that's highlighted here with the blue dotted line. And so this suggested that these fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles were being dissolved as they were being filtered through the H+ ion exchange column, and once transformed into its soluble species, could be effectively removed by the H+ form resin. And so to put this hypothesis to the test, we filtered fresh lead phosphate nanoparticle water at a pH of 4 through the sodium form resin, which we know didn't alter suspension pH, at which point we were able to improve lead removal from an initial 6% up to 95%, confirming what we believed was happening in that column. And on the other hand, the New York City pipe loop water, which was older and had larger particles, dissolved less readily at the pH of 4, and that's highlighted here by that gray line, leading us to characterize these particles as more recalcitrant in nature, further explaining why these types of particles had overall lower removal by the H+ form resin, because again, they weren't dissolving. Next slide. And so in the last phase of this study, I performed a pitcher filter study using New York City tap water that was spiked with fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles, as well as a New York City pipe loop particles, using two pitcher filters. So on the left-hand side, I have a pitcher filter with activated carbon and H+ and hydroxide form ion exchange resin. And on the right-hand side, I have that second pitcher filter, which was essentially that same pitcher filter partially converted using a sodium chloride solution. And what we found overall big picture was that the pitcher filter containing the H+ and hydroxide form resins drastically outperformed the partially converted filter, again due to this ability to dissolve these particles either via adjusting pH or by removing soluble phosphate from solution. And I guess one takeaway from the partially converted pitcher filter was that the recalcitrant particles ended up having a slightly higher lead removal than fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles, which was kind of interesting in that case. Next slide. And so to conclude, the H+ form resin in this study was able to show overall superior lead removal for all suspensions, but more specifically for these fresh lead phosphate nanoparticles that readily dissolve. And it was doing this by dissolving them. And on the other hand, these larger, older, more recalcitrant particles, which can also form upon orthophosphate addition and be released into water, were better removed by the sodium form resin because the H+ form resin didn't have that dissolving advantage that it had with the fresh particles. And although this wasn't the focus for this presentation, I just wanted to mention that the anion exchange resins ended up removing soluble phosphate, but otherwise had little effect on lead removal. And so this concludes my presentation. As was mentioned, I've finished all those experiments and I'm writing up the manuscript to share this mechanism with the public. I can now open the floor to any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Shantali. So far, we don't have any questions, but I would like to just add here really quickly. First of all, obviously, Shantali, thank you so much for an amazing presentation. But if you do have questions, again, we can take some time at the end of this webinar as well to answer any additional questions anyone might have or think of while we're presenting the next session. So Shantali, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and pause here for the next presentation. I'm going to go ahead and read Fatima's bio really quickly here. Our second winner, Fatima Asadi of the University of British Columbia, recently completed her PhD in chemical and biological engineering. Her bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering are from Sharif University of Technology in 2014 and 2017, respectively. During her study in Sharif, she was involved in several environmental projects focusing on micropollutants removal from water and industrial wastewater using membrane technologies. Her experience and passion in the water treatment field led her to join SWIRL at UBC, working under the supervision of Professor Majid Moshemi, and her research provides much needed insights and tools to better address the challenges posed by PFAS through implementing effective treatment processes. Her poster is Facing the Challenges of Per and Polyfluoral Alkyl Substances. Does ion exchange process offer a solution for in-home water treatment? I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Fatima.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for the warm introduction. So can you see my screen? Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Fatima. As mentioned, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of British Columbia. I'm honored to be here actually as 2024 winner of the poster contest to talk about a part of my PhD work on PFAS contamination and answer this question. Does ion exchange process offer a solution for in-home water treatment? But first, have a look at PFAS. PFAS are a group of man-made chemicals composed of a hydrophilic functional group attached to a hydrophobic carbon chain. These two properties, along with the presence of a strong CF bond in their structure, make PFAS chemically and thermally stable. They also have heat, oil, and water-resistant properties. So they've been used in many industrial applications like firefighting foam, food packaging, clothing, cookware, cosmetics, and many more. Due to their wide application, PFAS have been detected all around the globe, especially in the drinking water sources. Once PFAS enter the human body through one of the contaminated sources, they can cause severe health problems such as cancer. So health authorities worldwide are working together to set strict regulations against them. As such, very recently, the US EPA set their regulatory level of 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS as one of the two most well-known PFAS. So we really want to go ahead and mitigate PFAS in the environment. When we talk about PFAS, we're not talking about one single compound. Rather, we talk about 1,000 type of different kind of chemicals with different structure, different properties, and different behavior within the treatment systems. So it is important for us to consider these differences when designing any treatment technology. Among the treatment technology, ion exchange resin showed promise potential because it can capture a wide range of actually PFAS, including shorter chains, which are a challenge when using activated carbons. Activated carbons capture micropollutants or contaminant through hydrophobic interaction, which is ineffective when using it for capturing short chain PFAS. On the other side, ion exchange resin working with two mechanisms, hydrophobic interaction, which is important for capturing long chain PFAS, and electrostatic for capturing short chain PFAS. So consider that you are using a filter or pitcher at your home for capturing PFAS and happy with drinking safe and PFAS-free water. One question is that what if the filter reached the saturation point? So the answer would be to replace the filter or the pitcher. The next question would be, what is the fate of these filters? The answer would be in either landfilling them or burning them to get rid of the exhausted materials. But the challenge here is that in both cases, the PFAS can be released back to the environment. For example, when landfilling, PFAS can leach out to the soil, or when burning, it can release to the air and coming back to the environment. One sustainable solution is to use a small volume of brine solution and then regenerate the exhausted materials, and then using a destruction method to break down the molecular structure of PFAS. So in this study, we look at the absorption kinetic and also regeneration recovery of 4 different types of PFAS, PFOA as the long chain, PFBA as short chain, GenX as the etheric, and 6,2-FTCA as telomere PFAS on 4 types of resin. Resin A and B are polyacrylic, non-specific to PFAS, and they are so-called regenerable resins. Resin C and D are polystyrene-based, PFAS-specific, and they're so-called single-use or non-regenerable resins. We've added fresh resin to a highly concentrated PFAS solution for the adsorption cycle to be done. When the resin is getting actually loaded, we did the regeneration recovery using 5 different types of salt, namely sodium chloride, sodium sulfate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium hydroxide, and ammonium sulfate in 3 different dosage of 0.1, 1, and 8%. In the middle part, you can see the result of this study. Left column shows the adsorption kinetic results, and the right-hand side showing the regeneration recovery. If you have a closer look at the adsorption kinetic, you can see that for resin C and D or polystyrene-based and PFAS-specific resins, the adsorption kinetic is slower than resin A and B. However, the capacity of resin C and D is higher than and greater than resin A and B. As you can see, for resin A and B, which are non-specific to PFAS, we reach a plateau after a while. However, resin C and D are capturing PFAS without reaching any saturation. Here you can see the result of regeneration recovery. The top graph shows the average result among all the conditions for the regeneration recovery in a different salt and different dosages. The left-hand side graph shows the average result across a different dosage. And as you can see, 1% of salt doses show better performance compared to 0.1 and 8%. 0.1% cannot weaken the electrostatic interaction, and 8% also causing salting out effect. So 1% showed better performance. Among the type of salt, sodium sulfate, sodium chloride, and sodium bicarbonate showed better performance compared to the other ones. So in general, we could say that 1% of each of these 3 salts would be the best option for regeneration purposes. The bottom graph shows the effect of addition of methanol as the organic solvent to the condition. We reported here the result for PFOA as representative of the long chain and PFBA as representative of the short chain. From this graph, it is obvious that for short chain, for PFAS-specific or polystyrene-based resin C and D, the regeneration recovery in the addition of with the addition of only salt is way lower than resin A and B, because the main mechanism in polystyrene-based resin is hydrophobic, and salt alone cannot weaken the hydrophobic interaction. When we add methanol to all the resin, we see a significant improvement in all the conditions, specifically for resin C and D, as you can see here. For a short chain PFBA, addition of methanol to resin A and B actually didn't affect much because the main mechanism is electrostatic. However, as expected, for resin C and D, the addition of methanol significantly improved the regeneration recovery. In conclusion, we can see that PFAS-specific resins, while having a slower kinetic, showed a really great capacity for capturing PFAS. Longer chain PFAS are easier to absorb but difficult to dissolve. It's exactly in the opposite direction of short chain PFAS. It's harder for them to be absorbed and easier for them to be released from the resin. And introduction of an organic solvent such as methanol here significantly promoted the regeneration recovery. This study showed a good recovery with and without the addition of methanol among all the resin. But at the end of this, for example, test or a study, we had, for example, a highly concentrated brine solution that needs management. One strategy to managing this highly concentrated brine solution is using a destruction method to break down the PFAS structure within that brine solution and minimize the environmental impact of this solution. One such strategy would be using electrochemical process, which we are actively using in our lab with very interesting results, and hope we can present in the, for example, future events. So this is the end of my presentation. And at the end, I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, WQRF for giving me this opportunity, my supervisor, Professor Majid Mohseni, co-author, Dr. Banayan, and my teammate as well. And again, you all for listening. Thank you so much.
Fatima, thank you so much for your work on this. I just want to take a moment really quickly here to highlight how impressed I am with both, obviously, Fatima's work as well as Shintali's work. So thank you, bravo to you both. Thank you for joining us and for presenting your important findings today. While we wait for some questions for Fatima to roll in, I did have one come in for Shintali. The question is, how about mechanisms? What do they look like for other forms of lead nanoparticles, such as hydroxide or carbonate? For lead phosphate removal by resin in the column, what is the EBCT for the test? I know that was kind of a lot to throw at you right at this moment, Shintali. So maybe we can start with that first part of the question.
Yeah, so far this was more so focused on lead phosphate particles because it came out of the work from North New Jersey, where they had these very small particles that were evading capture. So it was a very specialized project. So we only tested that type of particle, but what I hope to propose in my manuscript is a method for assessing and tailoring technology to different types of particles. And I think it also just bolsters, like, one factor to look at is particle ability, in addition to particle distribution size and stuff like that. And I think the second question was talking more so about like contact time. So I can give you some specifics. So the contact time through the column was 37 seconds. It was pretty quick. Our void space was around like 33%. And I can just describe like the dimensions of the column if that's helpful. But it was just like 6 centimeters deep, and the diameter was like 14 millimeters. It was a very small column. But again, we were filtering water routinely. So we would collect the filtered water, redo it, and in that way you can track progressive lead removal per pass, if that's helpful to you. But also please reach out if you want any more specifics.
I did want to note as well that both the posters are actually still warehoused on our website, WQRF.org. So you can actually navigate to our website in that follow-up email that we'll be sending out at the end of the week. I'll make sure to put the link in there as well if you'd like to kind of do your own personal deeper dive into both of those poster presentations. So we have another question that just came in. Any reason to choose 100 ppm for PFAS? After resin reduction, all effluent concentration are below current EPA regulations.
Okay,
Fatima, I'm going to go ahead and turn that one over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question and your giving me this question. Actually, the reason that I use 100 ppm was to load the resins, because I try to exhaust the resin as much as I can. So that's why I use a very high concentration of the PFAS to load and some kind of exhaust the resins. This is the reason. And after reduction, we had 99.9% almost reduction. It was not below the EPA regulation because it was just lab scale test. It was okay because afterward we actually move it to the waste and not to hazardous waste. Actually, it was for the purpose of our work, but for sure, if we want to do it in a pilot scale, we have to be mindful of the effluent concentration at the end to be below the regulatory level, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, like I said, we'll have everyone on this call until we actually wrap up our webinar here today. So thank you again to both of our poster presenters. And now for this year's posters. We're excited to share, and hopefully all of you can now see my screen. We're excited to share that the 2025 call for poster presentations will be open on September 3rd. And as you may have already seen in the chat, we already have the website up and running. It's wqrf.org/posters. So all of the information is out there for you to kind of scan at your leisure. And you can check out the actual PDF requirements document for the actual call for posters this year. As mentioned earlier this morning, our collaborating partner this year is APHA's Environmental Section's Health and Water Committee. And on our call today, we've got Dr. Aziz Molla. He is the co-chair of the Health and Water Committee and a professor of public health with over 20 years of experience in teaching and in research topics such as climate change, drinking water, environmental health, health policy, community health, culture, disease, and social determinants of health. Aziz currently works in the College of Health Professions at Grand Valley State University in Michigan. And he has also worked on water quality issues in Bangladesh, Ghana, Haiti, as well as the United States. He's currently working on a textbook entitled Climate Change, Drinking Water Security, and Public Health. So we're really excited to have him on the call today. But briefly, I was just going to share a little bit of information on our side of the call, which is the water research side. So as you can see here, again, everything is up on our website, but we're very interested in basically putting out a call for abstracts this year that feature research on point of use or point of entry water treatment technologies. Exactly similar to what we did last year with a little bit of a twist. We've offered some suggestions here on the screen that you can see, but please don't allow that to be limiting to you, as we'd like for you to get creative as well. A brief reminder that we do not allow for brand names or model names to be revealed in the course of your poster presentation. We'd like to be brand agnostic here, so please don't include them in your abstract. Additionally, the topic of product development for new or emerging technologies are also prohibited within our call for posters. So similar on the public health side of things, we've kind of outlined here some of the things that we are interested in seeing on the public health perspective. So for right now, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Molla for him to give a little bit of additional information on the public health side of the call.
All right, and thank you, Kelly, for the nice introduction and excellent presentation by Chantel and Fatima. That's a great job. Before I start talking about the future poster opportunities, I'd like to invite any participant to join the Water and Health Committee, which is part of the Environment section of American Public Health Association. Several years back, we founded this, but it's getting a lot of popularity, particularly several colleagues is involved being recently Seth Frisbee is contributing, giving a lot of time to make it as effective as possible. So whenever Kelly approached that, can we do something collaborative work? Like, so that will be a fantastic work from the student point of view. You may know the American Public Health Association have several sections, like environment is section, international health is a section. So under each section, there are several committees based on topic work. So the way and every section, each and every section has a student body. So student, we encourage student to turn in abstract so that we can be presented as a poster or even oral presentation, sometimes even roundtable, so that they can connect with other water experts and environmental expert. And that's the way they can network too. So whenever they can come to American Public Health Association meeting, this year the meeting is in Minnesota. Next year is in Washington, DC. So that will be great if we can thinking about in fact coming to American Public Health Association meeting or learn about it. That will be wonderful. What really we expect to learn more about this opportunity that is given by Water Quality Research Foundation, and so that you can learn more, you can demonstrate your work and also disseminate your work to others, to the scientific community, I should say. So that's definitely a good one. In environment section, we definitely has, since it's part of the American Public Health Association, we touch some of the health part in there. So, but it's not necessary that you have to be part of the health. The abstract usually is guided by the theme of this year. But for your submission, you please consider on the announcement that is published on WQRF website. So that will be the main considering factors. If you need any kind of a guideline or more information, I bet Kelly will be available. And if I can help anyway, will be definitely helping in that way. Water is a very important elements of our life, and also move forward with our societal development. Climate change is definitely impacting, and one of the impact factor will be on water quality and also water quantity, water security issues. So those are very important areas. So anyone are thinking about working in these areas, I really definitely congratulate you. That's the right decision, and you can do certain work. Now, from the education point of view, whoever is joining this committee, they already have knowledge, but the main thing is the education part. People do not understand general population, what is lead, what is pH, what is any other parameters of water, and how that is being contaminated, what is the contaminating factor, what are the environmental agents. But how we can really educate people, giving information in a very easier way, so that we can really educate people, make them, the general population, as like a change agent. That is what I always believe, that I'm getting a lot of information on a lot of support from the society, from the community, what we can give back to the community. So that is what I think we all need to do that, and definitely it will be an opportunity to do that. So I don't want to talk more about that. I'll get back to Kelly so that she can further elaborate, and we can go from there. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking to you. Kelly, should I discuss the submit abstract, or you're going to talk about that? Maybe you should talk about it. Okay.
I will talk about that. I apologize. I'm having some issues with my little Zoom bar. So
okay.
Sorry for the delay, everyone. Thank you so much, Aziz. We appreciate that. And that's entirely, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with why we wanted to partner with APHA. We certainly want to make sure that, you know, we're reaching the general public with some of these issues that are important in water today, and trying to understand public health education, and partnering with a group like APHA is certainly going to help us in reaching that public. So thank you so much for joining us. Really quickly, obviously wanted to talk quickly about what it takes to actually submit a poster. Again, everything is on the website, but wanted to obviously address what it would take to submit an abstract. We've outlined it here. It's very simple. We simply need the title, the name of the presenter, as well as your organization or institution that you are submitting from, along with your field of study, and your 300-word abstract. Some of this information is outlined here, but there is also additionally a link on our website on how to write the perfect abstract. So I would definitely encourage you to seek that out. And when you're writing your abstract, kind of consult that for additional information. But finally, why do we want you to submit? Obviously, we had 2 winners on earlier giving their presentations from this year. Both of these scholarship winners won a $1,000 scholarship towards educational expenses. And certainly we're excited to offer that to next year's round of poster presenters. So one $1,000 award will be given in the area of water research. Another $1,000 award will be offered in the area of public health. So we're excited for that. We definitely have room for up to 10 submitters this year. So obviously, please submit. Go to our website, WQRF.org, and find out more information. Obviously, again, here's the website. But if you have any questions, if there's anything that seems unclear to you, reach out to us at foundation@WQRF.org. We'll be happy to get back to you. Finally, if there are any additional questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat here, and we can answer them before we hop off this call today. But again, wanted to reiterate that the call for posters will be open as of September 3rd. So the website is available to you if you want to go seek out some information, but we'll start accepting those abstracts as of September 3rd. They can be emailed to foundation@WQRF.org. And a final thanks and shout out to our friends at Calgon Carbon for their help this year in putting together the summer school webinar series. Finally, we would love to hear from you. We will be putting out a survey probably later next week about the webinar series. We'd be curious for feedback, any comments or suggestions for things that you might be interested in hearing about, either next summer or even throughout the remainder of 2024 this year. So we're excited about the opportunity to offer this webinar series and would love to do it again, but certainly would love your feedback on it. So it doesn't seem like any other questions have come in today. My thanks to all of our presenters for hopping on this call today, and enjoy what remains of your summer. Happy Labor Day to everyone, and best of luck to all of those who are kicking off the